So, hello everyone, welcome to our webinar and thank you for your continued interest in our MGMGP funding. I would like to acknowledge that the land where I am speaking from is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and we are the homeland of the Métis Nation. So today we will be talking about an introduction to gender equality and gender integration in development projects. There will be an opportunity to ask question in the chat box. So please write any question that as you think of them, and we will answer them at the end. There, at the end of the webinar, there will be two Q&A sections. The first one will be answered by Colom about the today webinar, and the second section will be about question and answer about the theme fund and its application process, and I will answer your question. I hope you will enjoy the webinar and helpful for knowing more about gender equality and preparing for theme fund proposal, which has a deadline on February 1st. So now I would like just to feature our today's speaker, Colin Foran, our incredible program officer. She's responsible for gender and public engagement and Fund for Innovation and Transformation. So now I will let Colin to start our webinar today.
Thank you, Abdel. Hi, everyone. As Abdel said earlier, my name is Colomb Fawn, and I'm the Gender and Public Engagement Program Officer for the Fund for Innovation and Transformation at MCIC. I'm here today to give a hand of my colleague, to my colleague Abdel, on the gender aspect of the TEM Fund. For this session, we are aiming to enhance or refresh, in some cases, our understanding of gender equality as it relates to international development work. Today, I will be walking you through a quick introduction to gender equality and gender integration that will help you think through the importance of incorporating gender into your work. This session has four main objectives. Firstly, I will explore some key gender equality terms and definitions. I feel it's important to do this to ensure that we all are starting from the same place and have the same understanding of some foundational concepts. Secondly, I will explore the concept of gender equality and then discuss the importance of gender integration in our work. Finally, I will highlight some tips to help you as you develop your proposal. Let's jump right in. Next slide, please. Now, what is gender? Next slide. So let's start at the beginning and think about how you will define the term sex. Sex and gender are two concepts that are very different but are often conflated and used interchangeably incorrectly. Sex refers to the biological attributes and characteristics of being human. It's about the physical features, chromosomes, genes, hormones, and anatomy that make up a person. Sex is typically binary and categorized as either male or female. Next slide, please. Gender, however, is not restricted to a binary concept. It's not simply about being male or female. Gender refers to the socially constructed roles and behavior of women, men, girls, boys, and all genders or gender diverse people. Gender influences how people perceive themselves and each other, how they act and interact, and the distribution of power and resource in society. The concept of gender is also not static. It exists along a continuum that can change over time. So the idea of being male or female is not the same from one community or country to the next, and not even from one household to another. Ideas around what it means to be a woman, for example, also change from one point in time to another or from one generation to the next. Next slide, please. So keeping these definitions in mind, let's consider the following examples. Examples of sex include the fact that women have babies or men's veins tend to be larger than women's veins. There are biological differences. The gender examples here highlight ideas that may be different culturally from one place to the next or that can change over time. For instance, that women should do the housework or men are better at math. Next slide, please. A quick note on gender nonconforming people before we continue. Gender identity refers to an individual's internalized psychological experience of being male or female, whereas gender nonconformity refers to the degree to which an individual's appearance, behavior, interest, and subjective self-concept deviate from conventional norms for masculinity or femininity. A person is considered to be gender nonconforming if their appearance or behavior is not what would be expected for someone else with the same gender or sex. I think we should, however, keep in mind that not every person who is gender nonconforming is transgender or gender diverse, although the two groups are often combined. People can be cisgender or gender nonconforming. Similarly, many transgender people are highly gender conforming if given the opportunity to affirm their gender identity socially, medically, and or surgically. Gender nonconformity is also culturally constrained and depending on the culture and type of nonconformity that may be perceived in positive or negative ways. What is important to keep in mind is that gender roles can be oppressive and even harmful. Next slide, please. Continuing to build on these ideas, let's think about the concept of intersectionality, which importantly consider how sex and gender intersect with other identities. Intersectionality is a framework for conceptualizing a person, group, or social problem as affected by a number of disadvantages or discriminations. It considers pupils' overlapping identities such as ethnicity, religion, or age, for example. Simply put, intersectionality asserts that categories like gender, race, and class are best understood as overlapping rather than being distinct. For your work, it's important to recognize the diversity within groups of people and understand that they may well be impacted differently by gender, sociocultural factors, and your project. You must remember that groups of people, like women, are not homogeneous and should not be considered all the same. This understanding is critical to incorporating gender effectively into your work. So why is the distinction between sex and gender important? It's important because ultimately it's your understanding of gender that will be integrated throughout your project design framework in order to ensure it will achieve its intended result. Next slide. What is gender equality? Next, please. Gender equality does not mean that women and men are the same. Gender equality refers to the equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities for women, men, and all genders. And it's about ensuring that everyone can live the life of their own choosing, and has the power to shape their own lives, irrespective of whether they are male or female or non binary. Gender equality and integrating gender into your work implies that the interests, needs, and priorities of both women and men and all genders are taken into consideration. Gender equality is not only about women or girls. It, it involves women, girls, men, boys, and all genders. A gender equal society ensures fair and equitable distribution of power, influences, and resources. Next slide, please. Another important term is gender equity, which is also often confused with equality. You can think of equality as your ultimate goal and as the goal of your project, but being equitable leads to greater equality. Equity is one pathway to achieving gender equality. Gender equity is the process of being fair to both women and men and all genders. Again, this is not about necessarily treating everyone the same. However, to ensure fairness, it's important to ensure that everyone is operating on a level playing field. Next slide, please. Here is an example of how gender equity and gender equality do not mean the same thing. In this picture, we see three people of different heights who are all trying to reach the fruit on the tree. You can think of the fruit as being the goal of your development project. It's important to consider what each of these people needs in order to be successful, in order to grab the fruit. Also, the different aids of the pupil can also represent the unequal starting places for different pupils in society, or even how the different overlapping identities may impact their experiences. If you were to treat these people equally, you would give everyone the same box to stand on, like you can see on the left. But then only the tallest person will be successful in reaching the fruit. If we treat them equitably, we will provide as many bugs as are needed in order to ensure everyone can reach the fruit, which you can see on the right. Importantly, equity is about giving everyone what they need to be successful. Next slide, please. So one pathway for improved gender equality is women's empowerment. Restoring the empowerment of women and girls is also an important pillar of the fund. Women's empowerment is a process by which women and girls gain power and control over their own lives and acquire the ability to make strategic choices. Empowerment is shaped by agency, resources, and structures. Through greater empowerment, women become more aware of unequal power relations, build self-confidence and skills, have expanded choice, increased access to and control other resources, and greater actions to transform structures and institutions that perpetuate gender discrimination and inequalities. For your work and beyond, it's important to ensure that everyone's needs and priorities, particularly women and girls, have been considered throughout your project design and implementation. Next slide, please. So why is gender equality important? Next, there are three primary reasons that gender equality is broadly important. Firstly, it's vital for the realization of human rights for all. Many initial notions of equality are grounded in the fact that equality is a basic human right. Secondly, we know that greater equality leads to more sustainable development and social progress. Regardless of the focus of your project, whether it be health or agriculture, improved equality will enhance your effectiveness and outcomes. Finally, gender equality is intrinsically linked to long-term economic growth. If you are familiar with terms such as smart business or smart economics, this relates to the idea that research shows if you are not engaging or reaching half of the population, you will never grow as fast. We see this at the level of households and also at the level of a nation. Next slide, please. To underpin the importance of gender equality, I would also like to highlight the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, which are an urgent call to action for all countries. There are 17 SDGs spanning areas such as poverty, health, climate change. And SDG 5 aims to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Next slide, please. A second important policy to be aware of is the Canadian Feminist International Assistance Policy, or FIAP, which outlines Canada's area of interest in eradicating poverty around the world. The FIAP has six action areas with a core focus on gender equality and empowerment of women. FIAP supports efforts to reduce sexual and gender-based violence, to strengthen women's organizations and movements that advance women's rights, to improve government's capacity to provide services to women and girls, and to improve gender analysis. Next slide, please. Overall, we know that gender equality is an important pathway for progress. By eliminating barriers to equality and helping create better opportunities, women and girls can be powerful agents of change and improve their own lives and those of their families, communities, and countries. This is a powerful way to reduce poverty for everyone. It's also the most important way to ensure that your project is effective and inclusive. Next slide, please. So, what is gender integration? Next. For those of you who are familiar with the concept of gender mainstreaming refers to the process of increasing gender awareness and equality within an organization's operations. Although related and complementary, gender integration refers to steps and actions at the level of programming or intervention. Gender integration is about the strategies applied in programmatic design, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation to take gender consideration into account. Gender integration also aims to improve gender awareness and equality at the level of programs to compensate for gender-based inequalities. Next slide, please. A way to conceptualize the goal of integrating gender into our work is through a gender integration continuum, such as the gender equality markers proposed in the Guide for Funding Applications. The gender equality markers, or GEM, is a way to evaluate your gender efforts and actions. It has been adapted from a number of leading markers and helps to measure the extent to which a development project contributes to advancing gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. Here you can see that our GEM has four levels: gender blend, or G0, gender sensitive, or G1, gender responsive, or G2, gender transformative, or G3. For today, I will simply highlight that your gender efforts are aiming to move along the continuum from being gender blend toward being more gender aware. That means gender 2 or gender 3, for instance. It can also guide you in assessing your own contribution to gender equality. When you are integrating gender into your work, it can be helpful if you know where you want to go. Next slide, please. At the level of being gender blend or G0, there is no consideration of gender, and thus development projects can reinforce existing inequalities, even if unintentionally. G0 projects or gender blend projects are not expected to contribute to gender equality at all. Similarly, a gender-sensitive or G1 project it is also non-expecting to contribute to gender equality. Indeed, a gender-sensitive development project may indicate some awareness of gender inequalities, but as no remedial action is taken, it's not expected to contribute to gender equality in a meaningful way. Next slide, please. Let's look at an example. In considering this cartoon, you can think of climbing the tree as the goal or the outcome of your development project. When you consider all the animals, you can represent your beneficiaries. You can start, you can represent your beneficiaries. You can start to see that not all the animals will be able to climb the tree or to access your product or service, for example. You can see that the monkey and bird will have no issues, but the fish will certainly require some support. Someone may have to carry the fish to the top, whereas the seal and the elephant may require different kind of support. So importantly, this cartoon highlights that integrating gender is not about necessarily treating everyone the same, but as we become more gender aware by conducting gender analysis, we can understand and recognize that women, men, boys, girls, and people of all genders may have very different needs and priorities, and different actions and strategies are needed in order to be successful. Next slide, please. In contrast to the first two levels, at the level of being gender responsive and gender transformative, the development projects are aware of gender inequalities and the influence of gender on the project. But they also go beyond this understanding and aim to address any gender-based constraints through action and activities. The primary difference between these two levels is that at the gender responsive level, gender equality is an important and deliberate objective of the project, but it's not the principal reason for developing it. While at the gender transformative level, gender equality is the principal objective of the development project. If we think of an example like an education or literacy project, a gender responsive project will be designed with gender equality as a significant objective. For instance, the project will aim to understand the primary constraints that children face. In the case that girls face additional gender-based barriers, then the project would address these constraints by perhaps providing financial provision, raising awareness, or providing lecturings, or etc., depending on the context and findings of the gender analysis. An example of a gender transformative development project could be a project designed to specifically address girls' access to or performance in vocational training. So, gender equality and empowerment of women and girls is here the principal objective. For instance, the main objective is to empower women and girls by reducing inequalities between boys and girls. So it's important to remember that the program aims to fund development projects with a score of G2, that's mean gender responsive or higher. To do this, you must strive to integrate gender by understanding the influence of gender on your development project, in addition to addressing key gender-based constraints and barriers. Next slide, please. So how do we do this? Next. To integrate gender, we need a strong understanding of the influence of gender as it relates to your work. Typically, the first step and a primary tool for integrating gender into your project is to conduct a gender analysis. There are many different gender analysis frameworks and tools, but simply put, gender analysis refers to the variety of methods used to understand the relationships between men and women and people of all genders. It also aims to examine access to resources, activities, and the relative constraints. For your work, gender analysis will help you to assess how women and girls, men, boys, and all genders or gender diverse people may experience your development project. Importantly, a gender analysis explores how power relations give rise to discrimination, subordination, and exclusion in society. Ideally, a gender analysis should go beyond biological and sociological and sociocultural differences, as we all have multiple identity factors that intersect to make us who we are. Next slide, please. Secondly, to integrate gender into your work, you should develop your strategy after identifying gender issues that would affect your development project. A gender equality strategy should outline the overall approach to addressing key gender issues, highlight the activities and measures that will be integrated into the project, and define the monitoring plan to evaluate progress and achievement of the outcomes. The goal of a gender equality strategy is to ensure that the needs, priorities, interests, and ambition of women and girls, men and boys are taken into account at all stages of the project cycle. For development projects, a gender equality strategy is used to describe how the organization will achieve its proposed gender equality outcomes during the project implementation. Please keep in mind that a gender equality strategy is a dynamic document that should be continually updated and refined throughout the project cycle in order to remain relevant. Next slide, please. Now I would like to share some tips with you. A funded application is not simply a document that you prepare for a potential funder. It should also be a guide to your project plan and approach. Ideally, gender should inform everything from identifying the solution that would like to implement right into monitoring your project results. Some of the things that reviewers look for when they review a proposal are inclusive approaches. So, how are you involving beneficiaries, especially girls and women, and the local community in your project? Consult and involve your beneficiaries when identifying gender issues and defining gender equality outcomes. Because what may seem like a success for you may not be a success for your beneficiaries. A strong understanding of the local context, including key challenges, opportunities, and risks related to gender. Another thing that reviewers of proposal look for is your ability to integrate gender throughout the project in all design, planning, and implementation work, project administration, and program delivery. Another aspect to consider is if you are if you have a do no harm or ethical approach. In other words, having plans to mitigate risk for participants. You should also think about providing sufficient human and financial resources to efficiently consider gender issues into your project. Ideally, reviewers want to understand if you are incorporating gender as a lens that informs all aspects of the project after done as an afterthought or a nice to do. Next slide, please. This brings us to the end of this presentation, and I hope this session helps you to think about how to integrate gender into your work. Do not hesitate to ask your question, and I will try to answer as many of them as possible today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kulam. So if you have any question, you can please, I think you can write it in the chat, or if you,
So if you have any question about the gender aspect of the STEM fund, if you have any question about my presentation, I know for that most of you have already a lot of information about gender equality and gender integration, but I hope that will be a refresher for you. And if I can help, please ask your question.
so can you see the question, or I should read it for you?
Yes, so I have a question from Alice, and she was wondering if a gender equality strategy is required at the proposal stage or if it can be developed throughout the project. So I can try an answer, and um, as we also have Janice and Abdel here, they can correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm
Sure.
not I'm not sure that a gender equality strategy, a full, a complete gender equality strategy is required at the proposal stage. But it's important that you include in your proposal how you are planning to address, to respond to the gender-based constraint or barriers that you will found after conducting your gender analysis. So a preliminary gender equality strategy can be a good thing to include in your proposal.
Yeah.
Abdel?
Yeah, I can add like for that. So just like so it's the answer is not required, yes, but it will be like as a strong point for in your application to show that how you are prepared and how you are like planned for your project. So this is like an extra point for your proposal, but it's not required.
Yeah. And also, as I said earlier, the gender equality strategy is a living document. So you should continually update it and refine it throughout the project. So even you include a strategy or some strategy or measure into your proposal, you have to make sure during the cycle of your project that this strategy is still relevant. So yes, it can be updated throughout the project. I hope that answer your question, Alice. Another question?
Looks like Betsy has a question. She has her hand up.
Where is it? Sorry.
She just has her hand up, so maybe she
Yeah,
wants
just
to
a
ask
minute.
a question.
Yeah. Where is it? Last look, yeah. Yeah, Betty, Betty, you can unmute yourself and you can ask if you would like.
How about now? It's okay?
Yeah, we hear you now. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. That's excellent and very in love with the people from Manitoba. My husband is from there. Anyway, my best regards. My question is, it's not question, it's just because working with GAC and usually the gender strategy we have to attach in the project, we have to attach the strategy as an attachment. And sometimes, you know, you have this kind of the discussions, because some people said that it's not important, what is better to have the gender analysis after the project's approved or before the project's approved. I think, you know, in my personal view is that I think it's very important to have the gender analysis even before the PIP, because it gives you so much idea, the macro picture, you know, of what we're going to take in the project. So, but because some organizations are different, for you guys, is you don't require the gender analysis or gender equality for your funding, or you just required concept note, or I don't know. I want to know what is the new requirement for funding.
Firstly, I completely agree with you. The gender analysis normally should inform all your projects. So that should be done before you develop your project.
That's
Ideally.
That's what I mean. That's
Ideally.
what I mean before even the gender strategy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is very important. That's what I mean. Maybe I didn't know how to express myself, but that is very crucial in order for us to understand what is the project about. But my question is from you, as a Manitoba Council for International Cooperation, when one's apply for funding to you, it is important to have GA, or is important to have just a GIS? So what is that?
So like if you have the chance like to look to our like guide and application, there is like we don't require like to include the gender equality strategy, but as I mentioned, that would be a strength point for your application. We usually don't receive concept note. We usually receive a full proposal for your project, just in one submission. So, and this is like a competitive, like as a theme fund, it is a competitive fund. So we can't like we do with other like funding stream, like for example, for the for the development. So sometimes they already like submitted like multi-year projects, so we can already have like we already received like the full proposal, and second year they will receive like shorter proposal because we already receive like all information in the first year. So for the theme fund, what we expect is to receive like in one full proposal. And I want to add, if there is a limitation in number of pages, like for example, if you want to add like your strategy or the gender equality strategy or the gender equality analysis, I would highly recommend to add that as an attachment if there isn't enough like pages in your application. I think this would be accepted for us. So
thank you for the clarification.
And I think as we are aiming to fund different type of organization, if you have your gender equality strategy, that can be an asset for you, as the term fund is the program is very competitive. I think in the guidelines we didn't require to submit a full gender equality strategy, as I said earlier, but it's still important that in your proposal you clearly mention how you are planning to respond to the gender-based constraint or barriers, which can also be considered as a gender equality strategy, not a full one, but strategy to address and respond to gender issues. So this is important to consider when you are developing your proposal. If you have a full gender equality strategy, it's a good point, and I will suggest you to attach it or to include it in your proposal if you want.
Thank you.
Any other question?
if you want to add like any question about like the theme fund now, I'm like I'm happy to answer it as well. Like let's do it like in the same time. So yeah, we receive another question. Column.
Yes. So another question from Alice. Are there resources on developing gender equality strategy? I say yes. There are a lot of resources, and I can also refer you to one of the FEED resource. And this source is the guide for developing a gender equality strategy in innovation space. This resource is available on our website, 3w at fit-fit. Yay, I will put that in the chat. Yeah, thank you, Janice.
Awesome.
And on the gender page, you can find a key to develop a gender equality strategy. And also our rapid gender scan, which is a tool very helpful to conduct a quick gender analysis. So that can be very helpful when you are developing your proposal.
Yeah.
I have to mention that our resource, as we develop this resource for the Fund for Innovation and Transformation, the language is adapted for testing environment and innovation, but the content is still relevant for development projects. So I strongly encourage you to visit and consult our resource on fit-fit.ca.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a question from Heather. Can you confirm CIC fiscal year? Do projects need to start before the end of this March 2021? Yes, as this is like criteria and requirement for all like funding streams or all four funding streams under the MGMGP. So your project has to start between April 1st, 2020 and maximum by end of March 2021. So like your project has to start between like this fiscal year. Can find rapid gender. Yeah. So
Thank you, Denise. Yes, exactly. We also have not only the material, but also our webinar on rapid gender scan and on the gender equality on rapid gender scan and also on the business case for gender equality on our website. And we will also have soon another session, another micro-learning about gender equality strategy. And I would like to invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and also you can just go and visit our website to find all information related to. I hope that will help you.
awesome. And I will send all of this information and like link for these resources like when I send like the recording for this webinar to all our members. So no worries for that. I have another question about like from Heather, some of the gender equality outcomes we expect to achieve will not to be attainable within the 12-month time frame. Is there any flexibility to provide reporting on gender equality outcome after the standard 6-month reporting due date? My good question. Like we receive sometimes like requests from like one our member agencies like that they requested for some reason an extension for the reporting to for the report submission. So we will deal with it like case by case. And yes, there is a flexibility. And ideally, what we expect, it's 6 months after the completion or the project completion date. If there is if you see within like the during the implementation period that you cannot like submit it after the 6 months, you can just simply send me an email and I can share it like with the committee and they can like we can discuss and I think if this is like reasonable for the committee, they will approve it.
I can also add something. I
Yeah.
think it's important that you choose the gender equality outcomes that are achievable during time frame of your project. So it's not about being too ambitious, but thinking about what is really feasible during your time frame. I know that we strongly encourage organization to try to reach the highest possible gender equality outcomes, like it's defined in the FIAP, for example. But there is still some type of outcomes that can be achievable during your time frame. So please think about it. That may be easier for you after to report on them, as you will be sure that your action and your activities truly contribute to these gender equality outcomes.
Thanks, Cool. And any other questions? Let's see. Okay. I have a question about what from Betsy. What are your current project priorities areas? So yeah, so like as you know, like this fund is called like theme fund. Every 2 years we change the theme based on the like priorities or the development priorities. So like the current theme fund is about like gender equality and let me see, just sorry,
COVID.
sorry, yeah, sorry. Just a minute. So what we expect like from our members like to submit proposals regarding like projects that are like contributing in providing or promoting gender equality. If you look to our like funding guide in our website, you will see like full definition for the current theme and what we are expecting like to receive for this theme. So I can't give an accurate because an accurate answer for this, because like there are like different way to promote gender equality through like education, through like uh, uh, water and sanitation, from like different like in different scope you can like achieve this target. So yeah, so I hope like I answer like your question.
Betsy asked climate change. Yes. So yes, you can choose your scope. That can be agriculture, that can be climate change, health, education. I think what is pretty important is that gender equality and all the empowerment of women and girls should be one of the significant objective of your project or the principal objective of your project.
Questions. Let's see. Okay, so how much, I have like question from Alice. How much can projects integrate COVID adaptation, ESP impact on women and girls? So
Sure, if you design your project in that regard, I mean, I think it can be included, right? Because obviously COVID is impacting women potentially differently as well. So I think it just depends on how you present your proposal. And it really still has to, in the theme fund, really still has to be looking at how that's empowering women and girls and non-conforming people. So I think if you keep that in mind, it's possible.
Completely. Actually, COVID-19 really and truly impact differently men, women, girls, boys, and all gender or gender diverse people. So when collecting your data, you should think about collecting data, gender data for the COVID-19, and also you should think about the COVID-19 as a potential risk in terms of implementing your project in the local context. So what is the situation actually in the local context where you are planning to implement your project? So are there a lot of cases of COVID-19? How COVID-19 impacted? What are the regulation, the law, the restriction that exist in the local context? So you should think about COVID-19 potential risks when you are developing your project. There is another question from Heather. Apple?
Yeah, when does MCIC anticipate being able to communicate which proposal have been approved? So this happened like after like the committee meeting, because we have overseas projects committee, which is like this committee responsible for reviewing the all development funds and theme fund. By end, I expect like maybe by end of February, we will like you will receive the like a letter from us if your project have been approved or accepted or not. So yeah, so and like these committee members are like we are like thankful for them, like for their contribution, for their time and efforts with us and reviewing this. They are doing all of that like voluntarily. Awesome. Any other questions?
No, I think we answered all of them. Any other question?
Certainly,
Okay.
if you think of questions after, I think you can reach out to Abdel,
Sure.
etc. If you have something specific about the theme fund, because the deadline is fast approaching. And yeah, so thanks so much to Colombe for helping us out today and providing the background and the refresher on gender, and also for Abdel for all the work that he's doing in coordinating our Manitoba Government Matching Grant Program, and really appreciate that many of you were able to join us today. And Abdel, I'm sure will be sending out the notes and the PowerPoint and the recording of this in case you want to share it with colleagues or review it again.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Janice. And thank you everybody for coming today and attend this gender equality and integration of gender into development project presentation. I really hope that you enjoy it, and that was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombe, and thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.